You're on mute, Elefthera.
Okay, now, am I heard?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Eleftheria Mfidzi, UECNA Secretary, and today I will make the introduction of our webinar on noise metrics. Noise is the unwanted or harmful sound considered unpleasant, loud, or disruptive to hearing. From a physics standpoint, there is no distinction between noise and desired sound, as both are vibrations through a medium such as air or water. The difference arises when the brain receives and perceives a sound. How is sound measured? We measure sound intensity, also referred to as sound power or sound pressure, in units called decibels. Decibels are the unit of measurement for sound, abbreviated dB. The louder the noise, the higher the decibels. Decibels can be adjusted to human hearing. Sounds at or below 70 dBs are considered safe for our hearing. That's the sound of a normal conversation between two people. A noise assessment is a detailed measurement and monitoring of levels of sound, air pressure waves in the area that it is under assessment. The assessment will determine the frequency and the amplitude of the sound in the air to provide the required information for a noise risk assessment. The sound exposure level, CEL, metric represents all the acoustic energy, sound, pressure, or of an individual noise event, as if that event had occurred within a 1 second time period. Regarding unwanted and harmful sounds, there has been research into the effects of low frequency, below 200 Hz noise. Research is quite clear that it is low frequencies that cause harm to humans. The higher frequencies measured by dBA certainly do capture noise that humans regard as annoying, but these are not the frequencies that cause harm. Our chair, Mr. John Stewart, will introduce our speakers for today, who will tell us more about metrics of noise and explain all the above. Dear John, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Elefthera, and just to add my welcome. I'm not going to say very much because I'm glad to say that the speakers today are going to cover all aspects of noise. Our three speakers are Giulio, who is from Bologna in Italy, and who is an acoustician, and he will outline some of the basics of metrics. Then I'm very pleased to say, and welcoming back, I think for a second or third time, is Elaine from New York, who runs a very effective residence campaign there, and she's going to talk about the American situation. And finally, Sean is from Australia, and he will focus on low frequency noise. The title of the webinar was, do we get more disturbed by aircraft noise than official figures show? And certainly many residents would argue that's the case. I think people identify three problems. One is the averaging out of noise, which happens. Do we really hear average noise, or should there be other metrics used? Is it more important, for example, to have to measure the number of planes going overhead? Perhaps we use both average and the number of planes. That's a question to be discussed. The level at which people become annoyed it varies from country to country, or not. The level at which we become annoyed doesn't vary, but the way governments in different countries measure the noise and also argue at what level we become annoyed varies. For example, the WHO talks about averaging out at 45 decibels. That's when people become annoyed. Is that too low? The UK these days goes at 51 decibels, the EU averaging out at 55 decibels. And as we hear from Elaine, America says people only really become annoyed when the noise averages out at 65 decibels. So there's a whole area there to be discussed. And finally, there's the whole question of low frequency noise. That's the deep bass you get from a sound system. There's a lot of low frequency noise in aircraft, and is it that's really affecting our health? And should we have different metrics to identify and to measure low frequency noise? And Sean has done a long paper on that and is going to give a brief presentation on the topic. After the speakers have spoken, the three speakers will form a panel which I will facilitate, and that'll be the time for discussions and questions. As ever, the webinar has been recorded, so if you're really desperate, you can watch it again, but it's also been recorded so that people who can't get here today can also watch it. That, I think, is enough from me for now, and I'm going to pass over to Giulio.
Hello, everybody. I'm Giulio Marsigli. I am from a place between Modena and Bologna. I'm an acoustic technician, as maybe all you know. And currently, I'm not in Bologna. I'm in Rome, near maybe Mrs. Ivana Baia, that is following us, right? And I will attend an speak about a paper about intrusive noise in air acoustic conference in University of Roma 3 tomorrow. This topic is linked to the topic of today, and I will show you some slide. There are basic information that we need to introduce the discussion. So let me share the slides. Okay, like this. Okay. Look. Okay, do you see?
That's perfect, Giulio. Yeah.
Okay,
perfect.
let's discover which metric are used for measuring noise. We all know that the noise have two principal characteristics, which is pressure and frequency. So this is how it is increased the pressure noise, the pressure with the decibel, which is a scale, and how we measure the noise. And this is these are the dBA filter that we hear, and you see that the line here to have the same sensation. For example, on 40 phones, we have this sensation in 1 kilohertz, and to have the same sensation of sorry. In low frequencies, we need a higher sound pressure. But it doesn't mean that there are no low frequencies. And maybe Sean will show us how. And on the right side, we see other kind of filters. And this is the main filters, which is used to measure and to characterize the noise. And it's the filter called A. It's the same line upside down of this is not the same, but is similar. So let's proceed. And this is the how we measure. We do the principal measure of the noise, which is an average. As you can see on the right side, there is the calculation. It means that every step, every second, it depends in which time you take the noise, you take the measure, and there is I don't know in English, in integral function is right. And this is how we used to see the lag. This is the instant sound pressure level, and this is the lag. So go on. And now the principal metrics of an event, of a single event, is the sound exposure level. In Italy, we call it a single event level, which is a little bit wrong, but it's more, we can more understand how it's used for. So the cell is the same pressure of lag, maybe the lag in 10 seconds about the event, compressed in 1 second. So we do this operation, and we compress the time, and how much energy is compressed we can see from the cell indicator. This is an example of you can see the lag, which is 79.1, for example. This is a takeoff, I think. And on the right side, we see the single event, the sound exposure level. So the energy compressed in 1 second is like that. Okay, and it is used to calculate and to compare every event, because one event, it could be not so noisy, but it lasts for 1 minute, and the other event, another event, it could be more noisy and last 10 seconds. And maybe they can have the same energy, the same cell. So, but let's take a look what we need to measure at the source. So there is a noise indicator called APN-dB, which you can see on the right side, is very easy to understand, and it's the event compressed in 10 seconds, and this metric is used to certificate, to make a certification of the aircraft, and to understand how much an aircraft is more noise than another aircraft. Another noise indicator is LDN, which all we know, especially in Europe. And we can see what we can do with this noise indicator. It means a territory management. So we can calculate with this method the indicator. And with this indicator, we can understand how much population are exposed to 50 to 54 dBA. And then with adequate software, with a good software called, there is an old software one which is called a integrated noise model, and the last one is IDT. We can show and understand noise contours, which take us to if well used, to a good territory management. In Italy, we use an indicator called LVA, and is calculated from the cell. We reach all the cells from noise monitoring system, so we cut away other events that are not linked to aviation, and we calculate this indicator LVA in the daytime. In the nighttime, there is a penalty of 10 dBA, and then we calculate the LVA for every morning and night, okay, every day, which is 24 hours means. And at the end of the year, we take in 2 periods the most noisy periods, and we look for the most noisy LVA, not most noisy, I'm wrong, the most trafficked, the most period, the period where there is most traffic. With this indicator, we can understand if the airport is is inside the noise limits or exceed the noise limits. Returning for LDEN, we can use LDEN also to make health assessment. And we can also compare with LDEN other kind of infrastructure as aircraft, road, and runway, and understand how much an infrastructure is means more annoyance than the others. And we know that the aircraft is most disturbing one, and the last is railway. There are more implications about psychoacoustics in this information. It could take one day to understand and to speak about. But today I stop here, and I give okay, it's finished. So you can go on with Sean and the low frequencies.
Yeah, no, I think it's Elaine next, but thank you very much, Giulio, for that.
One thing, just one more thing.
Yes.
In Italy, we used to say that LVA, where is here, is and the limits which are not explained here are the same of USA 75 dBi. No, 65, sorry,
Yeah.
65 dBA have been decided in 1997 with acceptable intention. That we say that these limits and this noise is acceptable. It doesn't mean that it is tolerable.
Yeah.
Okay. There are two words that are very different.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Julio, thanks again. Thanks very much for setting out the kind of basic acoustics there. We'll now go on to Elaine, and just for people who might have joined us, Elaine, of course, is well known to many of us. She has spoken at our webinars before, and is also the chair of a really effective campaign around New York. So Elaine, it's good to see you back.
Well, thank you so much, John, for that nice introduction, and good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are, to everyone here. I want to thank you so much for attending this very important discussion on metrics. So let me just start sharing my screen with you, and I will just, okay, so everybody can see?
Looks good. Yep.
Okay. So here in America, our threshold for any sort of disturbance to the communities is at 65 DNL. And as you can see from my title, it is the Great Deception. So let me just, why isn't it moving? Okay. It's not moving, John.
It's not moving.
No. Let me
Right.
just say. Let me just say what's going. Okay, here we
It
go.
should be a narrow. Yes. Nice one.
Okay, so here is a picture of the flight activity over the United States. So there are over 45,000 flights per day in the United States. Every day, 2.9 million people fly over American airspace. The U.S. has 19,633 airports, 5,082 public airports, and 14,551 private airports. So you could see the amount of activity is really distributed. But if you take a look onto the eastern seaboard where we are, you can see Boston here. You see a lot of activity in our areas. Okay. So aircraft noise descriptors of 65 DNL. The measurement and human perception of sound involve two basic physical characteristics: intensity, which is measured in decibels, and frequency, which is hertz. Aircraft noise originates from both the engines and the airframe of an aircraft, but the engines are the most significant source of noise. Noise metrics can be categorized as a single event metrics and cumulative metrics. Now, Julio went through some of these things with you, so I'll just go over them very briefly. First, we have a weighted sound pressure level, which is a dBA, and the sound has been filtered to reduce the effects of very low and very high frequency sounds. The perceived loudness of a sound doubles for each increase of 10 dBA. Next, we have a maximum A-weighted sound level, which is the Lmax, and the Lmax is the maximum or peak sound level during a noise event. Next, another metric can be sound exposure level, which is SEL, and SEL is a time integrated measure expressed in decibels of a single noise event at a reference of 1 second. The SEL of an aircraft noise is typically 7 to 12 dBA greater of the Lmax of that event. And we have the LEQ, and thank you, Julio, for going over this, which is the equivalent noise level. LEQ is the sound level corresponding to a steady state, a weighted sound level over a given sample period. It is the energy average noise level during that time period of the sample. And then we have day-night average sound level, which is DNL. DNL is expressed in dBA and represents the noise level over a 24-hour period. DNL includes the cumulative effects of a number of sound events rather than a single event. DNL is expressed is expressed in average noise level on the basis of annual aircraft operations for a calendar year. And I think that's very, very important, because that's why I put this star here, because it is over a year's period of time. Now, let's just take a look at this, and this was contributed by Dr. Cindy Christensen from the ANE Symposium. ANE Symposium is the noise, aviation noise and emissions symposium that is held once a year. And they have very good speakers who present the information. So if we take a look at this graph today, let's start with the single noise event at SEL at 114 dBA. So that will equal a DNL of 65. So if we go down to the next one, 10 events a day at 104.4 dBA, that will equal a 65. So you'll need 10 of these events to equal a 65 at 104 dBA. The next is 100 events, SEL at 94.4 dBA. That will equal 65 DNL. So 100 events will equal the 65 DNL. Now let's look at 1,000 events at an 84.4 dBA. You would need 1,000 events to equal a DNL of 65. Now, this is important here. Aviation events 5 miles plus from the runway end usually have a single event noise exposure level, SEL, less than 90 dBA. This means that the FAA's use of DNL allows up to 1,000 low-flying departure, arrival, or approaches per day to cross over the same residence before it is considered to be a significant aviation noise impact. I think that this is very, very effective to understand really what the 65 DNL means to us here in America. Now we have another problem, which is the neighborhood environmental study shows that 65 DNL threshold is invalid. This is also from Dr. Cindy Christensen from the ANE Symposium. This is what was used by the FAA as an indicator of what they would say annoying to to people. So this was done in 1992, 30 years ago. And so you could see the number of people that were highly annoyed. So now let's just switch over to 2021, when the FAA put out the NES, which is the National Environmental Survey. And you can see the responses, how much they have increased over time, because the study was really more significant in that it concentrated on aviation noise in particular. So if you look here and go to this Schultz curve and the NES curve here, the Schultz curve talked about all transportation noise, the NES aviation noise. The Schultz curve, combination of multiple surveys and questions. The NES curve was a specific study designed to capture annoyance to aviation noise. The Schultz curve used data from multiple countries. The NES curve, US data from residents living around 20 US airports. The Schultz curve, inappropriate statistical mode, best they had. The NES curve used state-of-the-art statistical model. The Schultz curve, inconsistent with what communities report as significant noise. The NES curve, closer to what communities report as significant noise. Okay, here is another problem. The flaw in using dBA is that much of the sound is subtracted below 200 hertz. This is from Brian Johnson, who also presented at the NEA Symposium this year, 2024. Brian Johnson is a reliability engineer. He has a master's from Harvard and also from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And he did his own
Let me just stop you a
study.
sec. Let me just stop you a second, Elaine. Can everybody switch off their gone to silent, because we can hear some wonderful music in the background. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Elaine.
Okay, so let's just take a look at these graphs. So here on the left, the floor and using dBA weighted sound. The dBA weighted sound is a manipulation of the sound energy being produced. It severely subtracts out much of the sound energy below 200 hertz. It then sums the remaining energy of the sound to produce the decibel measurement we are familiar with. The vast percentage of aircraft noise is produced is less than 40 hertz. So as you can see in this graph here, this is what is subtracted out to get the dBA that we use. And here to the right, while the use of A weighted sound is targeted to the sounds people hear, it is clearly not measuring the sounds that aircraft make. So this is further indication of how the sounds are subtracted. The A weighting sound subtracts out the vast majority of the sounds made by the airplane. Upper plots show loss of data from the A weighting manipulation. Note differences of maximum measurement of 0.0025 on the left and 0.00000012 on the right. So this red oval here is magnified in the lower plot. It should be noted that the lower left and upper right data are showing data in similar scale. So these are the same thing, basically, and he's just showing you what is really taken out here and here. So is that truly, indicator of what people are experiencing on the ground when we have so much aircraft flying over us? Okay. The next one is the JFK, which we are impacted here. I live on Long Island in New York. I live in Nassau County, which is adjacent to the airports here. And our airports right here, if you can see, this is JFK. That's in Queens. Right over the line here in this area is Nassau County. Here are our locations of our noise monitors. So we have one as far out in East Hills, which is about 20 miles from JFK. And as you can see, a lot of the noise monitors are around the airport itself. So if we look at here, the locations, if we say this, anything that has the J indications, those are the older models, and they're posted on to poles, telephone poles. And as time progressed, they went out to Nassau County because we were being severely impacted. Cedarhurst is in Nassau County. This is in part of Nassau County. All of these, I live in Malvern, right here. And so all of these are noise monitors, but they are on the ground. And a lot of them are put into places that are covered by trees, or they're not really directly under the flight path itself. And actually, a lot of them in Queens are not directly under a flight path. So is this also, the question that I have is this also a true indication of what we're receiving? But let's take a look at this monthly DNL. So if they're going to say 65, DNL is going to be the threshold where people are going to find annoyance. So we have a monitor at 71 DNL. This is very, very close to the airport. All of these are close to the airport, but if you could see, they are, to me, they're not really registering what the impact is. If you are living at these places, where this is where the takeoffs and especially the takeoffs, they are very, 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 very loud. And so they're really registering at maybe 71 dB. We don't have too many that are showing a strong impact. If we go out here where it says Floral Park, Malvern, this is East Hills, Valley Stream, these are all Nassau County. And this is Auburn. Auburn is right here. This is Auburn, okay? So that's 66.8. But we are heavily impacted in Nassau County, and not one of our monitors show a 65 or above DNL when we are getting aircraft over our homes at around 2,000 feet. I get the departures, and I have registered 88 decibels, 78 decibels, 81 decibels. So is this right here tells me that my average, that I'm fine. My community is fine because it registers at 56.3 DNL. So the question is this the safety of what is happening to us? So I'm leaving you with this from Dr. Daniel Fink from the Quiet Coalition, who Dr. Arlene works very closely with. So we are trying to get the new definition put into our dictionaries or journals or whatever you would like to use, that the American Public Health Association states noise is an unwanted and or harmful sound. Noise not loud enough to damage hearing causes high blood pressure, heart attacks, and strokes. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, considers noise an annoyance, but does not acknowledge the adverse health effects of aircraft noise. So I thank you for listening to my presentation today, and I'll take it back to John.
Elaine, thank you so much indeed. That was really powerful stuff. Right, we're now going to move on to Sean. Sean is based in Brisbane, where there's a big a campaign against aircraft noise, but has also done a lot of work Australia-wide, and he's going to talk about low-frequency noise. So, Sean, if you're able to share your screen, that would be great. If not, we'll find other ways of sharing your screen.
Thank you, John. I'll give it a try now.
Okay.
How is that? Can people see that?
We can indeed.
Okay.
That's fine, Sean.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to join this webinar. It's been very interesting listening to Elaine and Julio. Where we live, we fit in part of Elaine's scheme of things. We have about 80 aircraft going directly over our house every day. And somehow we survive that. Interestingly, one of the reasons I started digging into the frequency spectrum of aircraft noise was the work done by Bryce Johnson that I learned about in a webinar out of Seattle. The other side of the degree of interest I've got in this was the work that's been done in Europe, probably principally in Germany, by Thomas Munzel and Oman Haddad, looking at the effects on people's blood pressure, the rate of heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular disease generally. This alerted me to the fact that low frequency noise is not being measured. So this is what I'm talking about today. When we talk about dBA, we're talking about audible noise. But what we experience is whole body exposure with aircraft noise. And I'm suggesting that we need another metric that I've called DBH, DB health or DB harm, whichever you choose. And to understand properly what's happening to the human body with aircraft noise, we need to look at both of these things. So what I've done, let's see if we can do this. There we are, we're moving. This is a sound spectrum for possibly the largest, noisiest aircraft in operation, an A380, taking off from Brisbane Airport. When this sound spectrum was recorded, which I did with a little handheld gadget called Open Noise, developed in Italy, this is the sound spectrum. And the part that we talk about as dBA is that part inside the orange rectangle there. The rest of it does not contribute to what is a public understanding of what aircraft noise is. If we were to look at what I've just been talking about, sorry, I'll just go back one step. What we can see is that the majority of the aircraft noise is outside that rectangle. It's not being measured by dBA. If we started looking at the low end of the spectrum, because what we know is that low frequency sound between about 0 and 200 hertz are the frequencies that really hurt humans. There's a wealth of evidence about this. It keeps accumulating. So what I'm suggesting is that we need to look at both parts of the spectrum. Ideally, of course, we look at the whole spectrum. And just in case you think this one, the A380, stands out against all the other aircraft that are in operation, these are spectra for most of the aircraft that are in common use today, Boeing and Airbus. And although there are variations between them, what you can see is that they all follow a common pattern. The orange rectangle, again, outlines that part of the spectrum that is recorded in dBA. The rest is ignored. So whether you measure it over 1 day, 1 second, or 1 week, most of the spectrum is being ignored. And that is problematic because it's the spectrum, the lower end of the spectrum, that causes harm to humans. So our measures that are being used and talked about simply miss out on that part of the spectrum, which is not to say that being annoyed by aircraft noise is not important. It is, because it interrupts conversation, it messes up communication, it interrupts kids' learning and so on. But it's the lower end of the spectrum, which is where the harm is caused. So what happens with noise? Most of it is below 500 hertz. The most harmful stuff is below 200. The low frequency carries furthest. So although you may be told that the footprint of the aircraft noise is only maybe 2 kilometers wide, in fact, it's probably about 11 kilometers wide, because the low frequency noise that causes harm goes much further and it degrades much quicker. And this noise goes through your walls, goes through your ceilings, and is almost impossible to stop, even though you can't hear it. And what this happens in the body is it sets up resonances at the cellular level, in your lungs, in your heart, in your brain. And this is what causes changes, harmful changes. Here is a quick list of the frequencies that get affected, that have resonances. So you can see that the major organs in the body are affected by this noise. And work in Portugal has shown that it causes changes at the cellular level. So all of those low frequency noises there are what's affecting people. Your blood pressure goes up with low frequency noise. Your learning is interfered with also by low frequency noise, right? And your heart rate and your brain rates are also affected by low frequency noise. What does this lead to? This is the figures for Europe. These are the figures basically from WHO in Europe. And you can see that low frequency noise, which is what's causing these problems, affects hundreds of thousands of people every year with strokes and coronary heart disease. So we have a major public health problem here being caused by low frequency noise, which is not being paid attention to. We know these people are affected because the studies that have been done, the epidemiology, makes it very clear that these numbers are real. But the mechanism is not the one we record with dBA. It's the low frequency noise in the range that I've called, for want of a better name, dBH. And these figures are the ones that have been put together over some years. Julio had an interesting curve, and this is a similar kind of curve, except it doesn't have the D curve. And as you can see, the orange rectangle again shows those frequencies which are captured by dBA, the blue curve. If we wanted to collect information and relate it to the health conditions, then what we really need is to have no weighting. In other words, the zero curve, the Z curve. And this would then provide information of the amount of low frequency noise that people were being exposed to. And you can see the length of the wavelength gets longer as the frequency goes down. Finally, the pros and cons of the A filter. It's annoying noise. It's subjective, but it's real. It's only a small portion of the spectrum, and it is useful for the social impacts. But it's not much use when it comes to looking at clinical damage that we know is occurring in humans. And if we accept that this is the situation, we need to do a rethink on how we are measuring aircraft noise, which is generally agreed to be probably the most annoying and dangerous of all modern noises for a variety of reasons. We've put together some summaries. I'm sorry there's so many words, but this is the way it is. But basically, looking at the noise spectrum and moving from just dBA to the zero spectrum so that we look at the whole spectrum. Initially, people used dBA because the equipment that we had available when this was first measured back in about 1933, it was very complicated to measure sound. It's now a simple matter to measure sound. Simple in the sense it's installed in your smartphone. And you can download an app that does a very good job of measuring sound. And those diagrams I showed you at the beginning were all measured on a smartphone, standing outside the door at our house with the flight going directly overhead and the information captured on the screen and then put up here. So we can all now do good measurements, but avoid the endless arguments about is the reading 92 dBA or 93 dBA, which you can get into by looking at the spectrum of sound and recognizing that it's the low frequency sound that is doing the damage. So John, that's all I'm going to say right now, but I hope we can have a further discussion on this and bring in all the other expert advice that's part of UECNA to inform what we want to do. Thank you.
Sure. No, thank you very much indeed. That was tremendous stuff, and I suspect a lot of people will relate to what you've been saying there. So if Sean, you can stop sharing your screen.
I shall stop sharing.
Yeah, we can all see each other again, which is always very nice. So we have got some time. We don't need to stop at 6 o'clock. We can go on a bit because I suspect that there's a lot of people I know and I recognize on the call who have got expertise in this area. But listen, if you haven't got expertise and you want to make a point, that is no problem at all. And I also say every time that I'm in the privileged position that this is being conducted in English. If your English is not too hot, don't worry. If you want to say something, and the rest of us will help you out if you get stuck. So there's quite a lot of people on the call, and I can't quite see everybody on my screen. So, but if you either put your hand up a virtual hand or a physical hand, or if I don't see you at all, just start speaking. But Mark from Belgium, I can see your. I think that was a physical hand that went up there, Mark. Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my physical hand. Yes.
Excellent, good.
Yeah.
On you
I
go.
met you many years ago.
We
but
did
a long
indeed.
time
Good
ago.
to see you again.
It may be interesting to mention that the Superior Health Council of Belgium has issued a document where they also criticize the present way of measuring noise around airports. They clearly say that people are not annoyed or sleep disturbed by average yearly means, but by individual peaks and the frequency of these peaks. There's an English version of it, and I can forward it to you if you want.
Yes, that would be very helpful, because then we can either put it on the website or we can circulate it.
Yeah.
Mark. Yes.
Where do I send it? Because I have not been active in UECNA, but you have somewhere your email address or?
Yes. Have you got my personal email address?
Many years ago. I don't know whether it's still actual.
Probably a bit. I've got older, but the email address has stayed the same, Mark. Let me give it to you now, because I think that's
okay.
It's John Stewart, JOHN STEWART, and then the number 2. So it's John Stewart 2, all one word.
2. John Stewart 2. Yeah.
Yes, the number 2 at btconnect.com.
BG Connect.
You can always write it on the chat, John.
I could.
Several questions there too.
Yes.
Put it on the chat. Thank you.
I will put it on the chat. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, Eleftheria, do you want to put it on the chat for me? Because I need to concentrate for a little while on who's speaking.
Okay, I will do that.
That's great. That's absolutely great. Okay. Right. Who wants to speak next? Have we got?
Can I just respond to Mark, because there's a couple of questions on the chat line.
Yes,
that
sure.
are relevant. Mark, you're correct in the sense that the A320, the new Neo, does look like it produces more low frequency noise than its predecessor, the older A320, and that may be common across the spectrum, which then goes to questioning how much benefit we're going to get from new aircraft as compared to older aircraft. And that's got policy implications when you consider increases in air traffic becoming less annoying, but with more low frequency noise, the noise that damages us. More generally, I've just finished a draft of a paper on these issues, which I've sent to John, which will be reviewed, and once it's reviewed and all of the terrible errors pointed out and corrected, will be circulated, and it dives into all of this stuff in much more detail. That's enough from me, John.
Thanks, Sean. Matt, we'll bring you in, and then I think Elaine raised her hand as well. So Matt, welcome.
John, I'd like to do for the Netherlands the same thing as happened in Belgium. Our National Institute for Public Health and Environment initiated a study about the difference between calculating noise and measuring noise, which our citizens don't trust the calculations, the difference between what they see as noise and going above the level which are the limits there should be. So we have a paper too, and I think I will send it also in for maybe for a next time discussion on follow-up of this meeting today.
That'd be great, because the more papers and the more information we have on this, the better. Elaine, you wanted to come back in.
Yes, I just wanted to tell everyone that this year I didn't put it up because it was just so much information, but perhaps we can go over this the next time we meet. The FAA conducted a noise policy review this year. Well, actually, it ended September 29th of 2023, and they're still reviewing all of the recommendations and suggestions given by the public to this review, and they specifically were focusing in on different using what we could suggest as different measurements. Now, you have to remember this was very important because the questions, they asked 11 questions. They were highly, highly technical questions. And, you know, most of the lay people are really not that knowledgeable about sound or acoustics, and if they haven't studied it, so it was difficult. But there were close to 5,000 responses, many of which were given by very educated people who highly recommend a change and not using one metric as the overall indicator of how we are being impacted, our communities are being impacted, but rather a series of measurements that would give a much better picture to actually what we are experiencing. So I wanted to tell you know the audience that information. So perhaps next time we can go over some of the questions that were asked of the general public from the noise policy review of the FAA. And the other thing that I wanted to say as far as the low frequency sounds, people don't realize, I mean, we do have our hearing and we are subjected to, you know, we just think that the sound is coming through our ears. So if you lose your hearing, you're saying to yourself, well, I'm losing, you know, the inner ear or the middle ear or whatever. But being a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, a lot of the way we would see how our students were hearing and what they were hearing was through bone conduction. So, right, or Arlene shaking her head because we know it's another form of getting sound, and so it's not just through our ears. You know, you know, you can measure sound by bone conduction. So a low frequency is, as Sean had pointed out, will be measured in our bodies through bone conduction as well as our hearing.
Thanks very much. That's very interesting, Elaine. Friedman, I'll bring you in, and then Julio.
Okay. I have an impression that this discussion on the low frequency noise and on kind of measuring the noise is comparable with the ongoing discussion on ultrafine particulate matter, which is where there even are not even worldwide no limits on the number of which is damaging. So this is a very, very highly political issues related to the different ranges and limits we have in the different states, which were put on at the beginning of our webinar, that we see that even in 5 countries, there are 5 different levels and metrics. So there is a lot of work to do internally on our side, but the most important step would mean that there are steps on the political levels in all countries and all then on the WHO and everything. So it's a long, long way we have in front of us. Is that correct, what I mean?
I think that's right. But I think one of the interesting things I found over the last 15, 20 years, Friedman, is that the authorities are beginning to, less so in America, perhaps more so in Europe, but are beginning to recognize that people get annoyed at lower levels. The WHO was the best example, but certainly in the UK, it used to be that I think it was 57 LAQ was regarded as the point at which people got disturbed by noise. That's now been brought down quite considerably to 54 and even to 51. So the move is in the right direction. but we do need to keep on pushing. That's with A-weighted. There's less move on the low frequencies side of things. Julio, you wanted to come back in.
Yes, I just don't want to talk about low frequency issues on health issues because I don't know very much about that. Well, I must take my time and maybe watch some assessment and study some assessment about this this topic. But I want to talk about a general question. For me, noise is my job. I I face everyday noise, and for me, it's clear that 75 dBA of LDN or LVA, which is not so different, are not for a good health of the citizens. For me, it's clear. But if we want to go deep to what you citizens hear when there is a flyover event, and here is a link for what I'm here in Rome. I think that we maybe, because I'm not sure, maybe we can understand how much this noise emerges from the background noise regarding all the frequencies from 20 to 20 kilohertz. Okay, so this is why I'm here in Rome, because I've done an assessment with a new standard, Italian standard, which is called, it talks about intrusive noise. What is intrusive noise? It's a noise that is that you can hear above the background, and it is annoying you. And there is a procedure to understand that. And in this procedure, you must collect all the frequencies of the event and all the frequencies of the background noise. You compare these two collection, and there is some mathematics procedure, and it comes out a word which is it could be highly annoying, low annoying, medium, and I will show and I will present this this paper tomorrow. I don't know it. There will be applause or laugh. I really don't know, but I must do it because I need to do it, and I need to be sure if the path is right. And another thing I forgot. Yes, I made some measure in two situations with the same flyover event, with the window open and window closed, in two different rooms, adjacent rooms. I can show you the paper, of course, because first it will be publicated by the IIA, which is American institution, and also Italian one. But I don't know if there will be further assessment, and it will emerges this thing as a good thing to understand what happens inside the homes.
Okay.
I think it's well linked to annoyance.
Yes, it absolutely is. Very useful points. Arlene, I think your hand is up, and I think that may be the last hand. I can't see any more right now, but
Okay, I'm unmuted.
you're unmuted. We can hear you loud and clear.
I know we think of the United States as being behind in the research, but I want to read something to you from a booklet. Calling noise a nuisance is like calling smog an inconvenience. Noise must be considered a hazard to the health of people everywhere. Published by the EPA, August 1978. In the United States, noise was called a health hazard. It was not called a nuisance. It was not called an annoyance. And Dr. William Stewart was the Surgeon General who made that comment. So I want people to understand that we're not talking about being annoyed, being bothered. The literature is much more plentiful. But here is a booklet produced in the United States, which talks about sleep interruption, talks about the elements, but it says clearly noise is a health hazard, and we have to do something to stop it now. So the word annoyance, drop it.
Okay.
Health hazard.
I think you might have the last word there, Arlene. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Just before I hand back to Eleuthera, just to say that our next webinar will be a very special one. It's on June the 24th, which is not too far away. And we have speaking Omar Haddad, who Sean mentioned. He is the young man who has done a huge amount of work on noise and health. He's from the Johannes Gutenberg University, which is in Mainz near Frankfurt. Now, he is an international expert on this. So it will be a really, I think, a really informative webinar. So it's the same time, June the 24th. Of course, we'll get the details round. We'll put it on social media and so on. But just to give you some advance warning, Eleuthera, back to you to finish the webinar.
This was quite interesting things that we learned today, and I think there was a good discussion. But as in the chat someone has written, these are all political decisions that the metrics we use are not appropriate for people's disturbance, and they don't describe all the things we want, because we suffer. So I wanted to thank you all for participating in this webinar, and we are waiting for you at the next one that that John just said. So thank you all. Good
Thank you.
evening, good day,
Many thanks.
wherever you are.
Many thanks.